achievement itself. And this has been our 60th year, our Diamond Jubilee. We'd like to present the commemorative festival play to tonight's director, Myra Maguire. And now our adjudicator, Mr. Brian Marshman.
Tonight, just to let you know, I'm from Scotland. And if you haven't noticed that, then you wouldn't have noticed what a lovely production you've just seen tonight as well. When I read through this script, I thought to myself, yes, it's an original, if not unique, structure to the play that I hadn't come across before. The fact that you start off in 1995 with really the three children arguing amongst themselves, then in Act 2 you use exactly the same cast to turn the clock back to 1960, and using that same cast. Now, it was first produced in 1997, but it was revived on Broadway in 2006 with Julia Roberts actually playing the twin parts there of the girl in it, which is interesting. But as I read through it, I thought the play is extremely heavy on narrative. It's a very wordy play. It's rather light on dramatic action, so I wondered how the cast would tackle that. I think it's quite good on character development, though the psychology of the characters is quite unclear. For example, I thought, well, the brats, they've been brought up in a household with bags of money, and yet they seem to have all sorts of temperaments, especially Walker. So I was interested to see how they would actually play this. For Nan and Alina, the two parts that she plays, a lovely range from being pleasant in one part and charismatic to in the other one being the Southern Belle with a sort of fiery type of temper and a demand that she's going to make on other people. So the other thing I thought about it was, we've seen plays this week with large casts that have run this same length of time as this play, but for only 3 people to maintain and sustain interest throughout it makes tremendous demands on their technique, their vocal equipment, their movement and so on. So I wondered how they would cope with that. Well, the lights came up and I thought immediately, yes, you created Manhattan for me. I love the sort of cutout at the back there. It was so very, very effective and I liked it immensely. I thought we got the deserted apartment here, very sparsely furnished, a very large acting area, and I thought to myself, it's been left by and large empty, so how would they fill it? How would they fill it up? How would the director actually use it? I didn't even notice the downstairs lamp until it actually came on. So much for taking a second orange juice at the photo exhibition earlier on. So lovely change. Well done to the scenic designer and the stage management team on the change they got from Act 1 to Act 2. I thought it was quite ingenious using this type of flooring here because it warmed up considerably in the second act to get the effects that they got from it. I was a little bit worried in Act 2 that they had placed this desk where they had, because it was directly in line with the entrance, and I knew towards the end we were going to get the fact that one character comes in and discovers his girlfriend's having an affair with someone else. So that entrance was actually quite important, and I wondered if the person would be masked as he actually came in because of the placing of the desk here. Lighting-wise, elements of warmth in the first act. By and large, the faces were clear, but I did have some problems with the lighting, which I'd like to come back to later on. Costumes, yes, simple but effective in Act 1. In the beginning of the second act, I thought the 1960 period was absolutely bang on. I loved Lena's dress. I loved her hairband. It took me back to that era. Now, don't argue with me. You may feel to yourself, I'm too young to have been around in 1960. I just happen to look young, but I remember that. The dress was absolutely perfect, exactly the right length. The colours were lovely. She changed into a different dress later on, which was the same sort of style, and that hairband above all made me sort of want to admire her. Anyway, the sound, I liked the music. It conveyed the effects of Manhattan right from the word go. Like the rain sequences throughout it, the rain came through, quite the thing. So that was lovely. Production-wise, as I've mentioned, I liked the music. I liked the opening of the production immensely. This fusion of the music with the silhouette in the background, the apartment, the sound effects during that opening, I thought that was absolutely spot on. And then the director did it again at the opening of Act 2, an entirely different period, but got exactly the same impact from it. What did I like about it? The movement in it. An empty stage in that first act, and the way that the actors moved in sort of curved lines all the time. It added a touch of style. They were at home in doing it, and they used every inch of the stage. I thought I got a tremendous amount of visual variety, and I felt I needed it because of this worthy play. I thought the movement was motivated throughout it, and I jotted down the use of gesture as I haven't seen it earlier on in the festival. I thought maybe the actor who played Walker, the way he used his gesture in it, it was so natural and so lovely, but I thought it was so good. I thought maybe he's like that all the time. Then he went into his second part in the second act, and it was totally controlled. So they worked on the gesture to get additional movement into it, and I thought that paid off handsomely. I loved the change of pace of movement that they gave us as well as they went around the stage. It reflected a different attitude of mind at different points in it. The grouping was quite goodish, but there was still the odd occasion where, in a cast of 3, it should never happen. Bear in mind the different values on the stage. The people further up the stage have a different value, a different importance, and once or twice characters were on the same level on stage. It was a minor point. I'd like to have seen that tidied up just a little bit more than it was. Tremendous vocal dynamics throughout it. Again, they all played independent of one another, and the director bounced one voice off against the other on different pitches, different deliveries, different rates of aggression, and so on. The accents, by and large, were good. I think they created the illusion that I was looking for, and I had no problems with it. I loved the projection, the pace, the pause, the rhythm, and this for me created a lot of tempo, which I rather liked. And I thought that in the second act, we got an entirely different tempo, achieved a different way, which was extremely good. I loved the handling of the stutter that we got in from Ned. And I thought that, again, the argument was absolutely spot on between Ned and Theo in the second act. Some magic moments in it for me. Well, yes, I liked Nan and Pip. I knew in the storyline that they'd had an affair beforehand, and I thought it became obvious to you, the audience, the way they gelled together as a pair long before we were actually told about it. I loved the Pip and Walker argument. I thought they took it off the page and off the script and into performance most effectively. And I loved the way they handled the confession of the fact that he had been having an affair with her, and the fact that he accused Walker of being in love with him. His response to it, absolutely spot on. Opening of Act 2, you gave the play an entirely new lift and a change, which was absolutely lovely to see. I thought the production had a tone about it. Yes, the New York feel was there, but there was a tone and a style about the production that I liked. I did mention I had problems with the lighting. I felt that Pip was supposed to give the play a lift on his first entrance when he came to the lamppost. I suspect something went wrong with the lighting because he was in silhouette quite a bit, and at a time when he was introduced to us, to the audience, when I should have seen his full face, I didn't see his full face. Now, there were 2 or 3 or 4 other scenes all played in that area, and they were all perfectly lit, but that initial one didn't. I felt that in the sequence where we had Ned and Lena just about to kiss, they didn't kiss. We needed a blackout there to get them off, just as I would like to have seen a blackout at the end of Act 1, where they were left quite indeterminately on stage. Elsewhere, I felt there were 1 or 2 wrong cues came through lighting-wise that worried me a little bit. Prior to Nan's speech to the audience, when she directed her attention to the audience in Act 1, a wrong lighting cue, I think, came on. The lights at the back, on the back behind here, came up, and they came up for no apparent reason. Then shortly after that as well, in this room here, the lights seemed to go down, and there was no cue for someone to go and turn the lights down. They just went down of their own accord, and I thought something's actually must have gone wrong here with the lighting cue of it. So do beware of that. It was just a little bit unfortunate. But that said, direction-wise, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Individual performances, strangely enough, when it started off, this reservation I had about the psychology of Walker's character, I didn't like the opening paragraph down on the sort of the bed that we had down here. It didn't come across, but it was only one paragraph lasting for 10 or 15 seconds. Then he got up and he addressed the audience. And I've been saying all week, I've got to identify with characters. There has to be an element of charisma about them in order to identify and to think, I'm interested in you and what you're going to do. And when he spoke to the audience, he had that charisma. I warmed to him immediately. He was vocally varied. He paced his speeches extremely well. He was so charismatic at times. I've talked about the use of gesture. It was very American in his use of gesture, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And given the fact that there's so much narrative and so little action, that was important. His speech on the house, I thought, was particularly touching. Then, of course, he made his transformation into the part of Ned, and I thought his stutter was absolutely spot on. When I read the play, I thought, oh dear, this could be a long play because of the lack of action, and once he starts stuttering, that could draw it down a little bit more. There was absolutely no sign of that. He captured the shyness of the character. I thought his appearance was absolutely lovely in that, believed in him totally, particularly having the breathing problem when he was being bullied and he went down. It was actually very, very touching. You could hear a pin drop in the audience. It was so effective. Nan, I thought, was also charismatic as required. A lovely, radiant smile in that opening scene, which I thought was nice. Lovely vocal delivery, lovely vocal range from her. She was very relaxed and very easy movement on stage as Nan. Then she switched to the more neurotic element, and I thought that was good as Lena. Lovely contrast from Nan that she gave me. She gave me the accent, the drawl. I don't think that she sustained it for 100%, but that didn't bother me. I think theatre is about creating an illusion, and she created that illusion for me most effectively. I do recall in London seeing a production of 12 Angry Men, and for the first 3 minutes it's set in the Deep South, and they played it in the Deep South accent with the heat coming through in the lighting effects. And after the first 3 minutes of the play, they changed into standard English, and the audience accepted it, as I did, because the illusion had been created. Well, she actually created the illusion quite earlier on, and she sustained it for a good 85–90% of the time. And I loved her delivery of the wish list for the future that she had. It was actually quite poignant to actually watch. Pip's performance, spot on under the lamppost with his characterization. I really liked it vocally, had the problems with not actually seeing much of him. Then with Nan, he gave it an additional lift. Totally believable performance, and I liked his reaction to giving away the fact that he actually had an affair and he didn't have to actually say it. Then he switched into Theo, clean-cut element about him. The bullying scene with Ned, I thought he handled remarkably well too. It was sharp, it was to the point, and I liked it. So overall, I felt there were a few technical problems, but the overall scene I thought quite minor given what they achieved. The difficulties of overcoming the strong narrative element in the play were almost but not quite achieved. But this, I think, was as a result of the writing in the play as opposed to the production of the play. I much admired the pace, the projection, the movement of the actors that we saw, and I admired 3 very talented actors, all of whom played, I thought, with considerable charisma and thoroughly entertained me. So many thanks to Estuary players for the performance.